Right, so this is the second game of this Elmin twodback AdmiralGeneral hexapus matchup. Last time hexapus took a nice come from behind win.
Yes, he did. Looking at this map, there is a lot of resources all around the map. The only
You have
thing
these nice.
I'm noticing at the beginning is all the silicon is in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. It is a glass colony, so I want to found near to that silicon.
Yeah, I wonder if people are going to be able to resist these that nice scientific spot and these combo tiles.
Well, so
Let's
far
see.
they have. AdmiralGeneral found it as a scientist all the way on the opposite side of the silicon, and then
An expansive HQ has been
three
founded.
expansives.
Okay. Yeah,
Hexapus
so
also by AdmiralGeneral.
those are about the 4 spots you would expect. No
No.
real good carbon to work with. Maybe someone could have founded north, but this is all just fine.
Right. Right. The only thing I worry about Hexapus and AdmiralGenerals, they are about almost as far away from that silicon as you can be. At least they didn't go to the top corner, but
And that might end up being a problem with that glass colony, as you pointed out. But in general, with 2 people near the silicon, I'm not sure I'd be too worried.
that's a calculated risk. We do have the PERT bribe claim, so hopefully we'll see a lot of use of that early from everyone.
The black market is online.
One thing I did like seeing out of Elmin was him skipping iron and just buying up a pile of it. Steel and aluminum were expensive, so he could buy up the iron instead, get that production going nicely, instead of using a tile for the iron.
As well, now he's running out of cash and isn't producing anything.
It was a bit unfortunate that it was his aluminum getting pirated.
But he bought it.
Everything should be fine.
First claim. Okay, good. 2 claims are going. When these claims are out, I often will delay my upgrade just to buy a claim. I find that's more useful long term than getting the upgrade.
Yeah, that can be a very nice thing to do. Just it also gives the impression that you're a bit farther behind than you might seem.
Right, which is always helpful. Let's see, Hexapus over here on the right is encroaching in on AdmiralGeneral's science spot right there with his water.
Right, claiming those 2 waters is a very nice move. It's as good as any other water in the area, and yeah, you definitely want to get in the way of the scientist. It does concern me a little that he's in so much water already, but he's probably fine since there's so much other steel production on the map.
There's a lot of steel production. He does need that water to support his 3 farms, and food is really high right now, so it's not, at the moment, it's not concerning.
It should work out just fine.
With everyone being expansive, the fuel cost isn't going to rise as fast as it otherwise might. So there might be a problem transitioning, but for the moment, looks
a new
perfectly
claim is
fine.
Available for option.
Let's see, over on the other side, Elmin and twodback are both going into silicon early. Colony is currently consuming 1.4 glass, so that glass price should continue to rise.
Indeed. It's already all the way up at 160, and power is also becoming an issue. We have 2 players building geotherms, which will help, but that's just going to keep rising.
Sold.
AdmiralGeneral, picking up that claim auction. He's already picked up 2 claims off the black market.
An expansive HQ has been upgraded.
I mean, on one hand,
he does have the geo building.
On one hand, you're trading debt for that claim instead of cash. On the other hand, the bribe claim is only 10,000. Still relatively cheap.
I think since he does have that geotherm going up already, I would feel a lot more comfortable in AdmiralGeneral's position taking that. It's because his debt's not really going to get out of control.
No, he only has 60,000 debt right now, so not terrible
Going
at
into
all.
some extra wind help out too.
See, everybody's upgraded to level 3 at roughly the same time. Hexapus is going into glass without any silicon.
Twodback doing a nice little thing, grabbing these two silicon tiles and putting wind down on them.
Yes, it gives him some flexibility in the future, which is nice. He doesn't have any glass production. I guess he's not going for that at the moment. Elmin's the one who I would have thought would have had some glass production since he's sitting on a nice stockpile of silicon.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about what AdmiralGeneral has done here, putting this single glass furnace way out there, putting these reactors not connected. I think I'd much rather see the reactors just right next to his other stuff. Or just put down glass there and have the silicon quarry. Right now, this is going to be very slow glass production and very vulnerable to pirates.
He's building a hologrammed patent lab, so I assume with the relatively cheap chemicals, he's going to go straight into teleportation.
Teleportation rush is a decent option, I suppose. No one's going to really beat him to it.
No,
and he does have enough income to get that going.
So that probably explains what otherwise would look like a somewhat questionable move.
The patent lab is constructed. Let's get our science on.
Hexapus is the second target of hostile black market.
Yep.
Twodback.
I guess that makes sense. He's definitely a nice thing.
He has the most cash on hand, so he probably currently looks like the player in the lead.
We have a hard-to-come-by land claim available
Yes,
to the
AdmiralGeneral is
bidder.
going for teleportation. We'll have that in about 35 seconds.
No big surprise here that the two players who went into glass a bit more heavily are the first to 4. Glass is just out of control.
Right. Well, Hexapus does have glass. He is... Let's see if I can find him. Go. He has a stockpile, 44 glass on hand, so that'll keep his... I'm sorry, silicon on hand. That'll keep his glass production for a while, but the silicon at 60...
I'm not sure about using this extra claim on a third reactor instead of a second glass. The extra adjacency on the glass would be a lot more useful, and by the time it gets out there, teleportation will be done, so... Seems a bit odd.
The black market is open for business.
I would agree. Glasses
Pirates.
for AdmiralGeneral should be more profitable than it is.
Never put down.
99.
Yeah.
Reactors are
Twodback's
75.
going to be very sad about that sudden teleportation.
Twodback
right
going.
after the pirates get down.
An expansive HQ has been upgraded.
All right. Everyone is at level 4 at roughly the same time. No one seems to be pulling into a terribly high lead over the other.
And I would definitely be most concerned about, AdmiralGeneral, I think, is in the best position going forward just because scientists with patents already going. But everyone is still in a very decent position.
The black market is online.
I'm not sure if I would go for slant drilling second. I might think about trying to beat the other players to thinking machines. Right now, the Offworlds are decently priced, 28, 24, 23k, and that would give them a nice, really long-term advantage.
Thinking machines, virtual reality, maybe with the 3 expansives.
Right, we do have Twodback and Hexapus going for pleasure domes right now.
Yep. Those are going to be excellent.
And I'm not sure about the slant drilling because there's plenty of resources on the map, no nukes, so it's, and with teleportation, AdmiralGeneral just needs to get some extra flying
The pleasure
time.
dome is completed. I wonder what goes on in there.
Yeah, he basically had enough resources to
New
do
building is
most of
available
it,
for
anything
auction.
he might have wanted to do. It's just getting a little better adjacency, I guess, a little better water. It's not something that feels necessary at all.
Now,
This
he
hacker array.
is going for thinking machines now, which is a good long-term play for the scientist. His Offworlds will be next
So,
to unstoppable
An
from the black
expansive
market,
HQ
at
has
least
been
as close as you can
upgraded.
get. If he builds them next as this scientist, cooldown benefit, and the thinking machine stack.
Mhm.
Alright, so Hexapus has the hacker array, and he is
the black market is
not
open for
using it right
business.
now. Not sure if there's any obvious market for him to hack into.
Carbon short. That feels like an odd choice. Twodback has been in this dry ice pretty much the entire game. He has this huge stockpile of 300.
Yeah,
I
the problem,
guess Hexbus just never noticed that.
the problem with hacker arrays in a four-player FFA, especially when there's a lot of resources, is
The
it's really
pleasure dome
hard
is fully
to find
operational.
something that you
A
can hack
scientific
that
HQ
gives you
has
an
been
advantage.
upgraded.
Right. Even more so with a lot of expansives around. But it doesn't look like
Price
anyone's in
manipulations
chem
to
just quite
The
yet.
optimization center is ready. Time to
Hexapus
start
found
improving
the
everything.
AdmiralGeneral's patent lab. Feedback is also in a patent lab researching nanotechnology.
The black market is online.
We have a
Hexbus.
couple of
An
optimization centers.
expansive HQ has been upgraded.
I was going to say a Hexbus picking up superconductor was a nice little thing. Getting that extra 2 power is something just a little less to worry about long term.
Right. With prices as high, I'd like to on-world prices as high. I'd like to see Tudback at least go into one optimization center too. Those optimization centers can quickly pay for themselves when prices are over 3 digits.
Going for virtual reality now. That makes perfect sense. I really dislike this third
The
silicon
black
claim.
market
I
is
don't
open
feel
for
like there's any
business. Nuke
reason
for
for that.
sale.
By Tudback,
Underground nuclear
Yeah.
explosion device
You
for
already
sale.
have the scientist with 4 silicon claims. Well, I mean, one's a water claim, but slant drilling. And this other expansive with 2. There's no way silicon's going to get out of control, be out of control late game. For right now, it's helpful, but long term, it's going to be a problem. I guess that could be dry ice later, and
Congratulations.
you can
could
repurpose these
be
dry ice.
dry ice 2 of them, and then he also could switch them back to wind turbines since they're at the edge of the cliff.
Also fair.
So at the moment it seems a little bit questionable, but he does have some long-term flexibility.
Screw with us.
And I guess he
And we'll
is a bit
screw with
crammed
you.
into this corner, so maybe that helps spread him out a little more. Still doesn't feel ideal, but maybe not so bad.
Elmin with the first off-world market. An
There
interesting
are network viruses and dynamite still very cheap, so if people notice, that's going to get blown up a lot. And Elmin has a fair amount of debt, so if he gets attacked a lot, he's going to be in some trouble. Hexpus also with an off-world building.
Hexapus knows about Elmin's off-world. It's the only one with a spy on it.
The engineers have advanced our
Doesn't
production.
look like anybody else is a spy on Hexapus's off-world, which is currently constructing.
The black market is assembled. Our fortune awaits.
If you don't have thinking machines and you are planning on going on an off-world, which since off-world prices are 49, 36k, one of the things that you want to do as a player is try to toss that dynamite around just to make it so that, like right now it's really cheap once they goon pop. Once Hexapus goon pops Elmin's off-world, since he's the only one who knows, it'll be very cheap to throw dynamite at it.
Right, and I'm actually surprised that there haven't been more dynamites thrown. I mean, you have these pleasure domes that are generally dynamite magnets. Instead, AdmiralGeneral just keeps getting blown up.
And those
Should
pleasure
be,
domes are making pretty good money.
and especially twodback with the VR 369.
AdmiralGeneral's getting targeted because right now he's
Offworld shipment
clearly,
launched.
it looks
We'll
like he's
get all
in
the
winning
money.
positions. He has
Optimization routine
300k in cash
successful.
and resources at hand. What he doesn't have is an off-world market like
Right,
all
he
the
has
other
tons of
players.
cash and he should be moving into Offworlds, but he just hasn't been. Instead, he has this large stockpile of glass that's just been tanking in value. It's definitely a mistake.
AdmiralGeneral has a
Adjutant lab
large
is ready to begin research.
stockpile of glass. It looks like he only
Yeah,
has
he used to have
42.
over 300.
Okay, he must have just sold out of it then.
Oh wait, I'm looking at hexapus.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. Well, then is hexapus making the mistake of holding onto that stockpile? There's just a
Sold.
lot of glass production on the
The
map
engineers
that
have
needs to be
advanced our
getting sold down
production.
very quickly.
Right. If I was in glass production and had like hexapus and had a decent amount of carbon as he did, I'd be very tempted to switch into electronics right now.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Yeah, he does have some electronics, but that's just not enough.
Launch
Right,
affirmative.
electronics are both
Optimization
more
center is
profitable for
online.
him by
Let
far.
the planned obsolescence
81
begin.
versus 6. And they use a lot less
Our
silicon.
methods continue to improve.
Indeed. I'm not sure why he was optimizing water there. He does have enough water at the moment. Could have been doing some electronics instead, but I guess he's still not doing anything with optimization right now. Building a second off-world, though, that'll be good for him.
As twodback should be the first with the second off-world.
Right.
I'm
So
not sure
far,
why spies are so cheap at 10k right now, because everyone should see that the holograms really bought a lot.
very cheap spies, very cheap network viruses, very cheap dynamites, and very cheap EMPs.
There's plenty of ability to go aggressive on others off-world.
Right. Instead, these off-worlds are pretty much just, for the most part, being allowed to run. That's the first dynamite I noticed. Coming in an off-world.
Elmin gets the D debt tick. He has 178k in debt, so not too bad.
The engineers have advanced our production.
Interesting hexapus picking up those 2 spare stocks. It's probably a decent idea. It's a little bit of extra value. It gives you a bit of an easier path if you need to take either player down. But I always worry about that just attracting too much attention. Elmin has managed to pay off a large chunk of debt. And now his price is rising rapidly. Still does not have a second off-world though, so not in the greatest of positions.
No. At this point in time, dynamites have gone up a little bit more expensive, so perhaps he was waiting for dynamites to be a little more expensive before going into that second off-world. That's one possibility. And the other thing is by going from D to AAA debt, with defended himself already. Before doing that, it's a lot cheaper to defend himself, and it'll be a lot tougher for other players to buy into him. Meanwhile,
I do wonder if he maybe paid off a bit too much debt. Generally, I like to hover more in the A-B borderline area.
Right. Right. Meanwhile, we have both AdmiralGeneral and Hexapus are buying into each other. AdmiralGeneral still only has one off-world.
The black market is open for business.
Nothing else in production on the off-world front.
Optimization routine successful.
Normally with this sort of battle going on with pretty much the 1 and 2 players, you'd wonder if there's a good path for twodback, I guess in this case, to make a cheaper buy and get back into it, but it doesn't really feel like it. Okay, Elmin and twodback getting into a fight isn't great. Elmin does not have that second off-world still. He's
No.
probably going to lose the race, and then twodback isn't going to get a great sub, and he's going to struggle with debt. So this 1 versus 2 fight might not be as damaging as it normally tends to be.
The only benefit twodback buying into Elmin is Elmin does not have very much debt, so even though he only has 1 Offworld, he will be getting that dividend revenue a little bit quicker.
Well, I mean, the existing debt doesn't really make a difference. That's just wiped immediately once he's bought out.
Oh, my mistake. EMPs are still 14k, so there's still plenty of tools to inhibit everyone's off-worlds.
Right. AdmiralGeneral has his cooldown up. I really would have liked to see an EMP just right on that off-world.
A couple of them have just been bought by AdmiralGeneral.
Optimization routine successful.
Oh man, that pleasure dome's now fully surrounded, making that 433.
That is a ridiculous amount of money for pleasure dome. Black Magic would be very pleased.
It's basically half an off-world.
Successful off-world shipment. Make room for the profits.
This is where AdmiralGeneral has a slight advantage over Hexapus with that science and thinking machines bonus. I'm just not sure if it will be enough. I don't think it'll be enough to overcome that cash difference between Hexapus and AdmiralGeneral. Hexapus has the buy.
And even with the thinking machines, his off-worlds were just the ones that were revealed the quickest, that just were getting hit the most. Hexapus was
misinformation in progress.
Bit more untouched, and he had this really strong electronics production.
Alright, so twodback bought into Elmin, Hexapus and AdmiralGeneral, and this is where Hexapus's 1 share in twodback may come useful. They have both roughly the same amount of cash on hand currently.
This next debt tick is going to do a big number on twodback. A bit on Hexapus as well, but...
What a payout!
And AdmiralGeneral is a better sub for Find Hexapus. A little bit better sub income for Hexapus than
probably
Elmin.
Get close to even over time, but I think AdmiralGeneral's just bought a tiny bit sooner.
As twodback has the cash and really needs to buy into Hexapus as fast as he can, so Hexapus's stock price doesn't rise too much.
The black market is open for business.
Yep. Hexapus's stock price is actually still rising while twodback's is falling. You can see the difference in the debt really showing up there.
Right, Hexapus was able to pay off his D debt back into C range, so Hexapus can punish twodback, which he's currently doing with these EMPs, and twodback has no recourse. Slow down Hexapus.
Hexapus should have this pretty easily at this point. He is the one player that never got into Silicon. And that's a nice thing you can do sometimes, even though you know Silicon's going to be important. If you see all the other players making these large commitments, you can just skip it. And it works out nicely. You have more claims to do whatever you want.
Right. One of the downsides, for example, we criticized twodback earlier about going into 3 Silicon claims.
Black market is online.
Now there are far less Silicon claims on the map, but the game won't last long enough for that to matter. So it looks like Hexapus is going to win this without any too much difficulty if he has the buy.
Right, not even bothering to repair, but he is scrapping and moving. Oh, okay.
Go. Good game, Hexapus.
Just a very solid game all around.
So to me, it didn't seem that any of the players made any blatantly obvious errors in their play.
I am concerned about how AdmiralGeneral I'm not sure what happened there. He had that 300K and no Offworlds. It feels like he could have gotten into Offworlds sooner
Right.
and really used his thinking machines to his advantage, but said he was a bit behind in the Offworld race and just couldn't fight off Hexapus.
Yes, I was going to say, with the exception of AdmiralGeneral not going those off-worlds, it's the only major mistake I saw. Now, maybe AdmiralGeneral was thinking that since he was ahead and being targeted, that going into off-worlds faster would have made him more targeted, which might have been the case.
Possibly.
But that off-world race, lacking those off-worlds did allow Hexapus to bind to AdmiralGeneral first. And then between twodback and Elmin,
Just looking at the black market quickly, you see there are 8 dynamite spots. 6 of them landed on AdmiralGeneral. That's a pretty big deal there. Only 2 on Hexapus. So maybe AdmiralGeneral was right to be concerned, but I don't know, there's definitely more that could have been done early to drive the dynamite price up. Things of that nature.
right? And then we also have a situation where the player that ended up winning the game wasn't targeted very often by any of the other players.
Wasn't targeted often and used the most black market. Well, also in part because he was just alive the longest, but
right, which is a bit surprising because Hexapus was the second highest player for a long time during that game. So while I understand why you'd want to hit the top player constantly, sometimes you nail the top player too much, you might be giving the second place player a nice advantage.
twodback did throw 4 EMPs at Hexapus.
Hexapus led the optimizations with 16 to Elmin's 13. AdmiralGeneral and twodback only had 8 and 9 respectively.
Financial instruments also doing good work for him. How much did that make? Only 42K. It felt like more. I guess that came pretty late.
Yeah, it came late, and then for a good portion of the game, players were in decent amount of debt, and then you had both Elmin and twodback fall down into D.
Right, at the very last interest tick, there was an 18K payment for financial instruments, which didn't really make a difference in the outcome, but pretty large number.
Looking at the resource prices, you can see with this spike in electronics that it was an untapped market for a large portion of the game. Finally, people started going into it at Sol 8. That might be one area of potential improvement for some players who lost, was perhaps going to electronics a bit earlier.
AdmiralGeneral in particular purchasing the 161K. Everyone else made a pretty solid profit on electronics.